there is something that's done, that's the maximum amount of money that's there. So
Right.
the only real question is do we have to extend the time where we have this work completed by into 2011? And given that, is there a dollar cost value to it?
And I totally agree with you. The issue with this is that this is something that the Master Plan Committee inherited. And the Master Plan Committee didn't start meeting until March. And while we're meeting twice a month, and we did have Dave come in and tell us where he was and show us the maps, right? We're not at the position, this is only June, we're not at the position to tell anybody what we're going to do in reference to the town center. If we make the discussion now and we err wrong, then we're in trouble. I don't think this committee is united enough on this issue and discussed it enough to come to that conclusion now. Will we by the end of the year? There's an excellent possibility that we will, but I'm not going to commit to that.
And the reason you're not going to you would prefer not to commit to it is that if it is not completed by the end of the year, the committee does not want to come back to the town board and say we have to ask for another extension.
That's absolutely correct. It's going to take, if it was going to take him 2 months, approximately 2.5 months to do the study, and he's a quarter of the way through, we would have to give him the information, it's us, we would have to give him the information that he needs pretty early on for him to go forward and complete by the end of the year. And as chair of the committee, I don't see that happening. It could very well happen, but it's a cushion, it's an insurance policy for another 6 months. We have to do something, though, because the contract is already gone. It expired December 2009.
I don't doubt that. I mean, the other issue that you've got is that there's going to be a recommendation on the master plan that's then going to come to the board. I mean, I don't know whether it makes sense at this time to develop an average or a standard or if it's this size, then this is what the results would be. So for instance, if it's 100 acres in size and has a density of X, then the datum that comes out of that creates a report that shows this. And whether that can be extrapolated up or down depending on whether you enlarge or shrink that town center concept. I don't know enough about that report and how it's going to be generated to see whether it's going to be flexible enough to either grow or shrink based on what the final decision is, because the final decision is going to be up to the town board. And that ultimately is going to be in adopting any master plan. The committee could come up with one idea and the town board could come up with a completely different idea. So I know that you want to wait to make a decision, but I think there has to be some time limit. I think the other thing we're running out of moratorium time, which is a separate issue, but I think there has to be some decision. It may not be a perfect decision, but it's got to be a decision on what you want, and then get that study to reflect that, and then figure out whether we're going to...
Let me go back and clarify this. The study is the study. There is no variation on it. There is no additional work being done. There is no taking work out of it. Okay, it's $19,000 to do this particular scope of work. If we decide to cancel that contract or not extend it and enter into a different contract at some point with Dave Klauser to either do additional work in the feasibility or somebody else, right? That's a whole separate issue. I know.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. If Klauser is waiting on a statement of what is going to be part of the study, how large it is, where it's going to be, whatever else that is, that's what essentially the determination that you're saying can't be made till the end of the year, correct?
I'm saying that we are not there yet at
Okay.
the Master Plan Committee.
What I'm trying to say is that at some point in time a decision has to be made. and your committee's going to make a decision and give him the go-ahead to do that. Now,
Or not,
well,
or not.
and then they pay for whatever's been done to date, and it goes away. The issue is if that study is going to be used, the question I have is it something that can be, it's going to be a study. It's going to be information that comes back. So it says, if we do a town center and it's got X amount of size, this is what we need to do. This is the feasibility of this. After that study, you may decide, as your committee, to say, we're not going to go ahead. The town board may decide, we may not go ahead. The issue, I think, is that you're not going to get a perfect decision of what ultimately is going to be the end answer. You may be grinding the issue of what has to go back to Clouser so fine that we're going to get to that answer. That's my question. Can the committee agree that we need the study? That's a different issue than do we need the town center?
Let me answer the question kind of backwards. The Codes Committee, which sat for 3 years, okay, and did decide to have the study kind of started in June, although the contract wasn't really executed until September. They couldn't give Dave Clouser the parameters which he needed. If they couldn't do it, having sat as a committee for that period of time, and they couldn't do it for a bunch of reasons, okay, we as a committee that's just recently formed and started sitting, really, I'm not going to, I could certainly ask my committee, but I don't think we're going to go back and make a rush to judgment about giving Dave Clouser some information on the town center. I think it's that simple. We either extend the contract or we don't do the work. I don't, you know.
Let's just do it. Well, I think that my opinion is that there are a lot of ifs and contingency things here. However, I think the Master Plan Committee is composed of a reasonable and a lot of expertise. I hear Carol saying you might not use it, but want the option to be able to use it. I don't know how problematic it is if we get to if in fact you get to 2011 and then there's an increase in fees. I would love to hear you say that you could get it done by just by the end of the year.
I would love to be able to say that.
At zero increase. But I guess I'm more in favor of extending it, of giving the committee the extending the contract. I just think it's important that the work go forward. I clearly hear Jan Weedo saying he's not even sure you need to do the rest of the study.
The committee is extremely divided on this issue.
Because in fact, if the study is completed, there's no guarantee, even if you have defined a certain amount of density within a certain amount of space as a town center, that it will ever reach that density, or that anyone will ever build that density. So the town may never need